Good evening, everybody. My name is Kevin Starkey, the Managing Director and owner of Darkwood Studio Record Label Service, First Nations Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander record label service in Australia. Today, I would like to pay my respects and acknowledge the traditional owners of the country in which we're performing and recording on today, which are the Gubbi Gubbi and Kabi Kabi language groups. I would like to take this moment to pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and future. I would also like to take this time to pay my respects to the off-country elders, past, present and future, and emerging families that have been brought to this country and now live and exist within this country. I'd like to take this moment to thank everybody for respecting the culture of the Gubbi Gubbi Kabi Kabi language groups. Thank you.
Hi everyone, we're here at Peace Run Records in Nambour, which is a space owned by Andrea Kerwin, and I'm here on the couch with Justin Sheppard and Dr. Andy Ward. We're going to have a little bit of a conversation, I guess, semi-facilitated around how to scheme for good streaming. What streaming has been the thing of 2020 in the lockdown. Everybody's been looking into how they're going to be able to do it. So we thought we'd do a little segment on what not to do, what to do, and how, if it's possible, to make money from streaming your own live gigs. So Andy Ward is here with me. He's the discipline head for music at the University of the Sunshine Coast. And Andy has been doing some research into streaming platforms and how to monetize streaming, amongst other research, of course, Andy. But he made some interesting conclusions and found some interesting points. So over to you, Andy.
Thank you.
Tell us all about your research.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
I guess we're kind of in the precursory stages of finding out what there is to know. This year's really just existed as this giant pragmatic research thing. You know, everyone's tried to articulate their practical performance elements into a live stream environment, and the data that's coming out of it is really interesting, if not a little bit frustrating for all the people watching and I think all musicians everywhere. The background of this kind of speaks to the idea that our industry has gone from physical sales to digital sales to a streaming model in the course of 15 years. It's hugely destabilized the market, and for a large proportion of it, it has been a game for the big players. Mm-hmm. So the major record labels, Universal, Warner, Sony, all have either proprietary shares or other kinds of ownership over the main streaming services, like Spotify. And there's also, Apple Music and Apple Music's relationship with its own distribution network and its own kind of technical infrastructure. So that means that streaming, for a period, we all was like super excited about it because we're like, oh my God, it means we can reach a global audience, and we still can, and there's still a lot of positive things about it. But primarily, as anyone out there who's kind of leveraged their stuff onto Spotify will know, I've had a couple of million streams this year, and that hasn't really paid my rent or anything in terms of my music. I guess what traditionally we'd call sales. Mm-hmm. So streaming in and of itself has been a problem that we haven't really found a solution to any time in the last 10 years. And in the last 5 years, there are other areas where streaming's gone mad, right? So, Netflix and all of the big visual and screen media organizations are getting into that game. Disney Plus are doing their own proprietary stuff. Mm-hmm. Amazon Prime, which comes out of a kind of open source, free to access streaming platform, which is, Twitch, which used to be Justin TV. All of those proprietary fee subscription type models are, they're paying for content, but Spotify's not paying for content. Yes. Spotify's not approaching musicians and saying, hey, we really like what you're doing, can we commission an album? So it's a completely different economic model. And that sounds really, really terrible and doom and gloom, and that's not what I'm here to do. The really positive thing to come out of this year is, as you'll know, streaming's really easy. It's easier than it's, in terms of video streaming, it's been easier than it's ever been. If you're a self-produced musician at home, you've probably already got a little bit of a home studio setup, which you can just plug into an open source streaming platform like OBS. which is free and works beautifully on almost every platform, and you can cast to wherever you want. So it's probably not so much about the technology for streaming for us, because that's a pretty easily solvable solution. We as you know, we kind of normally hold a kind of little mini busking event for our second year students as part of their assessment, and we obviously couldn't hold that in the middle of the year, so we did all of that via Twitch TV. And that went really well. You know, we had a few hundred people observe during that time, but audience building and making money are two different things. So I guess that's why we're here today, to have a chat about how, I mean, we can talk about the technical infrastructure, but how does one go about monetizing what they do? Now, without wanting to delve into the too crass regions of the internet, we've always kind of looked, digital streaming media has always looked at kind of three places, and that's either been adult entertainment.
You can say it, Andy, it's okay.
Adult entertainment.
Andy did a lot of research into
Games.
the pornographic industry this year, okay? It was
Sure.
research, and it was useful, right? Because they
It's
are
hugely
monetizing.
useful. It's hugely useful, absolutely. If you look at, music, video games, and adult entertainment are the three areas that have always led the charge in distribution of media, always led the charge in the monetization of media. And so there are kind of two comparisons and case studies we looked at. So there's Twitch TV, which has roughly 15 million individual viewers a day, and is of course owned by Amazon, and without entering into a huge discussion about the business ethics of Jeff Bezos, Twitch runs reasonably independently, and it's got a great monetization model. In that, you kind of, as we kind of, a lot of these prominent sites, you got tokens, so people kind of put their money in to the website, and then they trade with the performer. But then, and that's great for video gaming. Like if you told me 10 years ago, one of the biggest sites, like the fourth largest site for internet traffic in the US, was a web streaming site predominantly for people to watch other people play video games, I would have never have picked that. But the video gamers, like they make their money out of different things. So people play them to deploy certain strategies, and there's kind of an on-demand type thing. But you can also sell advertising space on your Twitch page. You can also, have ads in between your videos. There's a lot of monetization capacity there. But what I think we're finding is, how do you perform as a musician then? And that's where we kind of looked to adult entertainment. And without being, too crass about it, the model for performance in adult entertainment is far more suited to how a regular everyday theatre and performance or musician or any other performer would engage with. Whereas kind of gamers build an audience, they get subscriptions, they get money, advertising revenue out of that. They're building an audience on a pre-made platform designed for them to do that. That's what Twitch is. But for musicians, and music being really a kind of emerging set of channels and accounts on Twitch, it's really hard. Like I said before, all the big majors, they have huge investment in the music streaming platforms. So of course the major label artists have the highest visibility. They get the highest streams. That's how the game is played. I spent a bit of time on a major record label and was getting hundreds of thousands of streams a week. And as soon as I went independent, that of course dropped away because of the way those organizations operate in that space. But Twitch and other streaming platforms, but probably in terms of our case study, Twitch is the most appropriate platform because it has all these built-in monetization things already. People can give you gems or basically big up you and pay you little bits and interact with you and chat with you and live request you do things. So what we found was, in adult entertainment, so weird to try and put this into a discussion and keep it clean, but basically the big ticket items in adult entertainment always are at the end of the performance. So if you get a huge amount of requests for something in adult entertainment, that's the thing that costs the most. So there's a kind of counter of how much credit is earned throughout the performance, and when you hit that amount, you will perform a certain thing. So my advice to kind of streaming musicians would be do the same thing on Twitch, obviously, not on the adult streaming platforms, but on Twitch. You're going to have to invest at least an hour or two sitting there, just engaging with an audience, trying to build up enough of a critical mass of people that are watching you, to then start counting what. So if someone wants a Billie Eilish track, sing a Billie Eilish song. Don't do it straight away. Say, yeah, I will, but you have to get 4 of your friends to come here and request it. And when I hit this much money, that's when I'll perform that song. So we kind of looked at that in terms of larger performances with already existing audiences. Like, we kind of theorized what would it be like for Tones and I to do a live stream, and how would she go about monetizing it. And obviously you wouldn't play Dance Monkey and you wouldn't play any of the big numbers until the very end, when the critical mass of money had already been made.
And how do you think an audience would go about paying money to hear that song? Normally when we attend a gig as punters, we pay our ticket price. We know that's how much it's going to cost, and we expect those hits to be played as part of the performance. We expect full production. We expect lights, and when we're paying for a live stream, we typically are getting or seeing, although venues have been doing it really well, with full production, but from people's bedrooms, it's like grungy video, crap sound. And then if an artist then asks, pay me more money or I'm not going to play Dance Monkey, in the case of Tones and I, well, I think that some audience members may just switch off their television or computer and walk away.
Yeah, I guess you can say, audience members see what's on the screen. So if they see it as like a money grabbing sort of thing, then they're just going to switch off as well. I've always watched streams and everything, and then I can tell when they're trying to make money or just sort of staying getting a living sort of thing. And yeah, I've always switched off when I'm notice a lot of ads and stuff like that. So just keep that in mind as well. Don't over advertise, but also just keep it a nice steady pace. So building a good rapport with your audience.
It's interesting you say that, because it speaks to a much bigger kind of endemic issue with Australia and culture, which is we're happy to pay a sports person $1 million a year for a contract. We're happy to pay a CEO of a big bank tens of millions of bucks a year for a contract, and we accept that they put in X amount of labor, they put in X amount of work, they do X amount of things, they achieve an expectation, and they get that money. And yet what you've just described is quintessential to every Australian music consumer out there, which is, well, not everyone. There are a core group of really brilliant people who support music, but for the vast majority of the average punters, they look at a musician and they go, "Are you trying to make money out of this? How disingenuous!" which is ridiculous. Because
I don't believe.
What we want to do is maintain our craft, to build a vibrant Australian music industry with a huge independent sector within it. We need people to understand that what we do as musicians is valuable, and that there's a huge amount of training that goes into realizing those outcomes. So there's this kind of attitude change that needs to happen through where people should, most people are happy to pay $10 a month for Spotify. And if Spotify turned around and said, "Cool guys, if you want, you can nominate to make it $20, and we'll give $2 to your top 10 artists each," right? If Spotify did that, and they haven't, and they may not, and I don't think they will. I reckon your average Spotify user would go, "Nah, thanks, mate. I'll just stick with the $10." So there's this really big whole of the recognition of labour that goes into the making of music.
Like,
That
I think
is-
you will find an artist on Spotify and you're like, oh yeah, this is right, but they've had like 10 years experience before you actually heard them, sort of thing. Like, it's not the first time they're performing. They've been practicing and all this for like 10 plus years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
So
so-
that kind of craft, you know, if you do an undergraduate in biomedicine and then a 4-year master's degree and 4 years worth of specialization,
Oh, yeah.
that's let's call it 12 years worth of university training. That's certainly what your average musician is investing in terms
Yeah.
of skill, in terms to produce to a level where they're at the commercial market and they're viable in that environment. So for us to then look at them and go, you should be doing this for love, not for money, is absurd.
Yeah.
But that's a larger thing we're probably not going to solve in this conversation.
No.
What do you reckon?
No, definitely not. But it's touched on a really very important point and probably an opportunity for a later discussion, I would say, the value of music and valuing our creatives. But I want to hand over to Justin about the tech for a second, if that's okay with you, Andy.
Please.
Justin is important for us as musicians to understand what we're getting ourselves into in the world of tech. Do I
Yeah.
need to go and buy, if I want to stream some shows from my lounge room, do I need to go out and buy a lighting rig? Do I need to buy a really expensive camera? Do I need really expensive equipment? Tell me, do I need to go and find some high-speed internet somewhere because my house doesn't have it?
Yeah. So I think for streaming, it's like the most important thing is honestly like internet. If your internet's not up to standard, then it's going to be choppy and it's going to be hard for viewers to watch. But in saying that, you don't need the best equipment for streaming as well. Like you only need like a standard HD video camera. Like they're not that expensive at the moment. They're tops $500 to $700. Like it's not a whole lot. Like you can get like 4K cameras, like 4K. Like it's just not.
And what's
ideal.
a K?
Oh, 4,000. Like 4K cameras is
Yeah.
like 4,000 pixels and stuff. Anyway, I won't go into dimensions and anything like that. But you don't need top of the range cameras to.
Can I use my iPhone?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's
Yes, you can.
everyone's got a smartphone.
Yeah.
haven't
So just set up like you don't even need like a stand or anything for the phone. Just set it up against like clothing. The audience won't be able to see what you've got behind it. So
Set
just
it up against what, sorry?
behind clothing, like up against clothing and stuff like that. Like,
Clothing.
yeah. If you don't have like a stand for the phone, just set it
Oh.
up against
Oh, I
clothing.
see.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So just on table against clothing, then it's like sitting upright, and then just perform your songs and stuff like that. For audio, probably get like a shotgun microphone, so like shooting into. So it's directional, not. I think it's omnidirectional, where it's like picking up sounds and stuff like that. I'm not too big on sound. Probably a cheap $50 light as well, just light up your face a little bit. But honestly, you don't need to spend like $5,000 to $10,000 just for streaming. No.
Okay. And how do I look my best on my couch with my bad lighting and my cheap $50 face light? How would I then, knowing nothing about how to make a video, how would I then compose the shot so that it looks like a proper band shot from a lounge room stream?
I can
Yeah, if you wanna
throw in
go.
a little bit about what kind of our students have been doing. Obviously, it's totally dependent on the type of music. If you're playing shoegaze grunge music at home, people don't care if you like face into the camp. You can be like, there's this intimacy that's involved in it that can be really special. But at the same time, you probably wouldn't do that if you were going to be pumping out some like deep house bangers for a few hours. In terms of like equipment and presenting yourself, it can be clip-on stuff. It can, in terms of holding the camera and the mic and as I said before, lots of musicians have that kind of basic stuff at home. And there are some really great tools as well, converters and apps that you can plug lots of audio interfaces straight into your phone. So that way you've got that.
Yeah.
Rather than just a single mic, you might have a guitar input and a keyboard input and a mic or something like that. That might really help.
Yeah.
Be useful. Yeah, and that's fairly cheap to buy, isn't it, Andy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think an iRig or an Apogee One or those kind of entry level mobile-friendly devices. They are anywhere between $100 and $200,
Yeah.
and the quality of them is outstanding in comparison to what it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So I've got my iPhone, I've got my iRig. Not that we're an advertisement here for Apple. We could easily use
Or the Android equivalent.
Android
Yep.
equivalents
Yes.
would be equally appropriate. I've got all that set up, and I'm starting playing. How am I making it go up to the internet, so to speak?
As Andy said before, Twitch, you can use Twitch and start using Twitch and everything like that. As Andy said before as well, they've got a good sort of what's the word for it? Revenue sort of making platform that already built and everything. Like, don't try to go off on like Facebook and everything or anything like that, because it's like not like higher revenue sort of making. Like, you can sort of start building your followers there as well, but in terms of making like revenue and like making money and stuff like that, probably use a platform like Twitch. Yeah, so that's probably my best bet. So yeah, just go on Twitch, make an account. Streaming for music, and then they've put you in the platform for musicians and stuff like that. I think they've got.
Yes, yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then just start streaming on, like, you can even just use your phone, start streaming, and then you're good to go. You've already got your lights, sound, and camera ready. That's all you really need.
Are there for like PC and laptop users, is there a particular software that you'd recommend, or are there apps like Android or iPhone apps you'd recommend? What are your thoughts on OBS, the Open Broadcast software?
I personally use OBS myself. I quite like it. Find it very easy to use. Just start recording, and then you're good to go.
And that's free, right? That's an open source software.
Yeah, it's free. I haven't paid a cent for it, so yes, it's free. Yeah.
Right.
Sweet.
So can we steer away now from the technical side? Because I think we've got to look culturally at, is the Australian music scene really ready? And is the Australian audience really ready to move away from like the live gig economy and into staying home, staying safe, and watching things on our couches? For me personally, I don't dig it. I don't care even if it's my favourite band. I'm still probably not going to tune into them online, but if they're playing in my local area, I'll pay the money and I'll go and see them. What do you think, Annie? I understand the University of the Sunshine Coast has established like a music research facility.
We're well on our way to doing that. Yep. We're
In process.
We've got a couple of broad format research, particularly kind of attitudinal research about the Australian music industry, some research into the economic impacts and mapping the economic impacts of COVID on the Aussie music industry, which has been really, historically really hard to draw a boundary around.
Yes.
Because, you have, in terms of what you're saying about kind of attitude and ideological type stuff in terms of industry operation, we're one of the few industries in the whole world where you have people who will call themselves musicians and derive no income out of it. Additionally, we'll have people who derive their entire income out of music, like a music teacher or a stage producer or a music venue, and they will not describe themselves as being part of the music industry. I mean, they might ideologically place themselves there, but when they're reporting, they're either in hospitality or they're in education. So music is in all of these other different industries, and people kind of look to musicians to be and their very close partnerships, so their managers and their promoters and their publicists, their publishers, labels, etc., as the core part of the music industry. But in reality, as you know, there's music in every gym. It would almost be like saying, well, only doctors are the medical industry. Not nurses, not anyone working in pharmaceuticals, not anyone working in medical equipment, not anyone working in the distribution or home health care or any of those things. They're not health. Only doctors are. So it's the same kind of attitude that we have in terms of economically mapping how big our industry is. So it's always underrepresented. But in terms of going to a gig, like what's it mean I tried, man. I tried at the beginning of this. Was like, yeah, okay, cool. I'll live stream some stuff. And it really speaks to, I mean, our region for starters. You'll find venues in Melbourne where people go and the room is silent and everyone's there to just listen to the artist. Now, that's not every venue. It's not even the majority of venues in Melbourne. For the most part, the majority, like going out to see live music is the going out part of it is as significant to most people as the music part. You know, so certainly any venue in Brisbane, there's the people up the front intently listening, and then like a bunch of people up the back having a dance and a boogie, and then there's people right back at the bar who couldn't care less. They're there to see the band, but they're equally there to see their friends, they're equally there to socialise, they're equally there to blow off steam and have a few drinks. So it's a totally different cultural proposition to be sitting at home. You know, I certainly upped my personal alcohol consumption during lockdown, as apparently the vast majority of Australia did. But, you know, that's not hugely healthy, sitting at home drinking by yourself, live streaming gigs and trying to live the cultural experience of hanging out with friends. So it's a totally different proposition and it doesn't feel the same. And so it goes into that idea that why would you stream a band who's performing? And the answer is to support them, you jerk. You know, like that if so many Australians enjoy a really vibrant live music scene. You know, all our main metropolitan centres have a very specific music scene. And we've had everything from Wally DeBacker and Sia Furler, you know, interstate to, I mean, the Saints come out of Brisbane. Half of punk music comes out of that scene. So until we recognise that needs to be appropriately patronised, and I don't think currently we're represented well enough in terms of government for that to be patronised in that way, then we need our industry to be patronised by the private sector, by the individual punter, by the person who says, I love that artist. Well, if you do, don't just lean into the credibility it loans you for loving them. Actually demonstrate that love and pay into a Patreon account or buy some more music or encourage them to live stream and pay them to do so.
Or buy some merch.
Buy some merch,
Yes.
absolutely, yeah.
Thank you, Andy. So, Justin,
Yep.
I'm going to come to you now for your top 5 tips or top 2 tips or
Alright.
your best advice to me, because I'm going to go home, I'm going to start streaming tonight. Tell me what not to do or what to do, please.
So don't, like, I'm going into video here. Okay. So don't overexpose your shots. It will be very hard to watch you because basically you have too much light on your face, so they won't be able to see you at all. Make sure your sound is good because sound makes half the video. Like, obviously they're listening to you because you're an artist, and if your sound isn't the best and you got a little bit of buzz, then it's going to be quite impactful on your streaming quality.
Andy, is there a future for streaming? Do you think, you know, once the world reopens and a vaccine becomes widely available,
You're a bit ambitious.
do you reckon, which is, you know, tomorrow,
Yeah.
Are people still going to want to stream and stay home and stay safe? Or I can't imagine personally that, you know, we're going to have major bands play and that we're going to have the option of rocking up and attending and paying our ticket price to attend live, or for $10 sit at home and watch it. I just don't see that that's going to actually be an effective business model for the industry moving forward. It's my understanding that most major promoters, when live is back at capacity, will be looking to keep music live because that's how it feels best, you know, when you can feel the bass in your chest and your clothes are shaking. Is that how you imagine it's going to go, or do you have a different idea?
I think streaming will always have a place, and particularly as it gets more accessible. To me, streaming and even online learning and everything that kind of we've done at the university and the music industry has been looking at, it's more about accessibility and equity. So your favorite band it's rarely going to tour all the way out to Longreach, let alone Manjum Up or whatever.
Sorry, Longreach.
I love regional Australia and all about regional Australia, but the reality is those same promoters aren't going to have a loss-making regional Australian tour without the support of either state or federal funding for that tour. So without that, streaming offers the opportunity for people in those regional and remote parts of Australia to engage with those kind of concerts. But will it replace live music? No, and I hope it doesn't. There's a lot of other strange moves in the industry at the moment. Sony International has just forked out hundreds of millions of dollars to become part owners of Fortnite. So they are investing in the gamification of the virtual music space. So there are several artists who have had successful concerts in the last 2 years hosted entirely on Fortnite only. And that's an interesting proposition because that's kind of the base parts of some streaming technology, but it's also kind of virtual and augmented reality stuff. So you can always look to those big technology houses like Sony to where they're investing their money as to what they think the next biggest thing's going to be. So I know a few theorists and a few people in the industry who would argue that games is the next place that's going to be major for music.
Absolutely.
So, but
for our age and younger, but your mum's not on Fortnite, is she?
No,
Yeah,
and
maybe
neither am I. And I probably should be, but
so certainly for the younger demographic, it seems to be the way forward. But what about for our aging population? How are they going to consume it? It'll be on their phone, won't it?
Well, I mean, I guess streaming will be all on the phone, but I hope there is never a day where live music is replaced by any of that technology, because for two very good reasons. One is, even if a performance is live streamed, it's still, at best, a representation or an analog of what it would be like to be there in person in the first place.
Yeah.
So you will never, ever, ever replace that. And secondly, music is a primary kind of mode of communication. It predates complex language. We were communicating with each other in pitch and intonation and rhythm well before we developed the English language, well before we developed, the whole complex language thing in our evolution. So it's a primary mode of communication that is entirely social and cultural. It's the first parts of us making meaning with each other. And if we remove the personal aspect of that and just put it behind a screen, I think you remove some of that magic.
I agree with you, Andy. And Justin, coming back to you.
Yeah.
What's our last
so, just I know this is very cliche, but just be yourself. Just play your music. It will start off quite slow. Don't expect 100 to 1,000 views in your first couple of sessions streaming. Just build that rapport with people. Just be yourself and just play your music.
Thank you, Justin. And thank you, Andy.
Thank
It's been a lovely conversation here at Peace Run Records in Nambour.
Thank you so much to Peace Run Records, to Sunshine Coast Creative Alliance, to Councillor David Law, to Racy and Lucky, Soul Bar, all our wonderful organisations and the people that are sending great support messages to our community, to Justin Sheppard for his wonderful filming, and to Donna Nelson for being a runner and helping us out so much today. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you to our speakers, Andrea Kerwin of Peace Run Records, Andy Ward of University of the Sunshine Coast, Cindy Vogels of Racy and Lucky, Eric Kanji, Justin Sheppard of SheppaRed Productions, and Zabrishan. Turn Up would also like to thank Smart Grants, Q Music, and the Queensland Government, Sunshine Coast Creative Alliance, Sunshine Coast Council, Soulbar, SheppaRed Productions, Peace Run Records, Racy and Lucky. Thank you for all your help in this project and your ongoing assistance to Turn Up. Thanks also go to Creative Alliance Australia, Live Music Office and Q Music for helping to promote these videos.